And welcome back to another episode of Modern Survivability. Think fast, think accurate. On this episode is going to be part 2 of our Real Talk series, so stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back to Modern Survivability. Think fast, think accurate. This is our first video podcast. So, right now, I'd like to give a shout out to Mattick Media for setting this all up and having all these great cameras out here to make this podcast available for you guys. So, this is our second installment of Real Talk. Today we're going to hit on some current events from the last time and talk about how they relate to survival. So one of the first things we're going to talk about that I've had over the last week and had some dealings with or whatnot is some of the local government things going on right now. There's elections coming up, local elections that is. There's also some, state and federal elections coming up throughout the country or whatnot. And the part that I'm going to talk about as far as how this relates to you and survival is some of the laws and stuff that these guys have made, some of the ordinances and codes that they put in place to kind of beat you down, basically. There's no other way to say it. So, for instance, you buy a piece of property and for whatever reason, you want to add something to the property, you want to build something else, make an addition to your house. Well, what do you have to do? You have to go get a permit to build in most places, depending on where you live. And then after you build this, whatever it is, we'll say a shed behind the house or another garage or something, then you got to get the code guy to come out and make sure it's up to code. If it's not up to code, then you got to tear it down, rebuild it, or, adjust fire and fix whatever you didn't do right the first time. And every time you do this, you have to pay them lots and lots of money, right? So when it's time to vote, it's important that you go out and vote, especially in your local elections, okay? Also your federal elections, they're important also, but where you're going to see your most influence as far as what's going to affect you personally, you and your family, is in your local elections, your mayors. Like we got, I believe it's county commissioner being elected here. There's a sheriff running, a sheriff's race or whatnot. And a bunch of those things have a lot of effect on you personally and, everybody around your area. I mean, yeah, electing the president is also a thing that, we could talk about, not really this episode, and they do have effects on the whole country basically, but more in line with your local government, okay? So on that same subject, another thing that really relates to you personally and having to deal with the local government and things like that and dealing with your own property is things like taxes. So property taxes. Me personally, I believe once you've paid for a piece of property, it's yours. You shouldn't have to pay property tax on it and keep paying the man, as some people like to say, for rights to your own property. Because if you don't pay property tax, what happens? They'll come take your property. So what's the point of paying for it in the first place? Taxation is theft. My own personal opinion. Unless you can show me a receipt as to where you spent my tax money. If we built a new school, we paved some roads, we, improved the infrastructure around town, this, that, and the other, I'm good with that. But show me some receipts. I go to pay my taxes, I have to show receipts if I want to claim something on taxes. Why shouldn't you have to show me yours? I mean, you're an elected official, you work for us, not the other way around. So, that's something that could really affect you personally, okay? And on that same note as taxes is your things like inheritance tax, death tax, and all these other things that you have a rich relative left you a bunch of money when they died, you had to pay taxes upon taxes upon taxes. All right. So without beating that dead horse on taxes, you know where I stand on it. So it's something to think about whenever you do go to do your taxes. Make sure you kind of take a deep dive and look and see what you're really paying taxes for. If you have any questions, there are some places around your local town that you can go and look and do some kind of digging around and see where your tax money's going. Because, we all like nice, smooth roads to drive on. We like for our children to go to great schools and have great infrastructure around town or whatnot. So, it's a good thing. But when you take our tax money, which kind of dives into our next subject, there's been more talk about more money being sent other places that aren't in the United States. That money comes from, you guessed it, the taxpayer. I don't think it should be up to us to fund a war somewhere else that doesn't really involve us. And without getting into all the geopolitical aspects of this, and Ukraine this and Ukraine that, and how it affects us and how it doesn't affect us, and this, that, and the other, you should probably take a deeper look at all the money that was earmarked to go overseas, didn't make it there, or it's sitting in a fund somewhere for something else. That's how they pass these giant what are they, omnibus bills, I believe is what they're called. They'll have like 10,000 pages, right? And then they'll have a lot of money earmarked for other things that have nothing to do with Ukraine. So just be careful who you vote for, because they're the ones voting on that, and they're taking your money. The money you work hard for to pay taxes, that money could be coming back to you. You could be using that money to fund the preps, to maybe buy some solar panels for your house, or, a battery backup like we talked about in some of the other episodes. So a couple of the current events that I've kind of noticed or whatnot, like I said, I try to stay out of the political aspect, like deep diving into it on any of my podcasts. This one included, even the new video podcast we got. But when we're spending money on, shrimp on treadmills, I mean, when that money could be taking care of homeless vets, or I don't know, any kind of thing to help out our people here in our country first, before we help out other people in other countries. I'm not against charity. I'm all about charity. But it has to start at home. And then from there, if we got something left over, then we'll help you out. Because a bunch of the people doing the talking about this, trying to get you to vote for them so they can, stay in Congress for 50 years, are the same people that have, I don't know, $10,000 refrigerators, or 2 or 3 private jets, that it didn't come from wealth that they had before they were elected. It come from staying in Congress for 40, 50 years. And like I said, we're not going to jump into whole term limits and all that other crazy stuff and, things like that. But we're going to move on to another topic. Okay? So, on that same line, we're going to talk about some of the free handouts and how they can affect you in multiple ways. One is, and it's kind of been going on for the last, I believe, 2 years, 3 years, is all about the free college, forgiving student loans. It's a great idea. I mean, sure, why not? Help somebody out, pay off their loans. But here's the thing. If you're old enough, and I say old enough, I'm talking about college students entering college, 17, 18 years old. If you're old enough to sign up or be drafted to go into the military, to go down range and take a bullet for his country, you're also responsible enough to pay your bills. Hey, if you want to go out and get a degree in underwater basket weaving, that's all great, all right? But you might want to look at the market for that before you go spend $120,000 on a college education that only has 3 positions ever. You know what I mean? If you want to go get a engineering degree or something useful, a doctor, lawyer, we say lawyers, but it's still a money-making deal. Make sure you do some research, right? Make sure you check out the jobs that are available for those things before you go spend 4 years of your life and, $120,000, $200,000 on a college education, and then expect somebody else to pay for it. Now, if you're smart and you got scholarships or grants or something like that, that's also a thing, all right? But it's not coming from a taxpayer most of the time. Some of the grants are, I'll give you that. But most of your scholarships aren't. They're endowments that have been given by normally really, really wealthy people to certain colleges for certain things. So keep that in mind. Pay your own debts, which that relates to our survival by being financially, having your financial readiness in order, right? We all know bad things happen every day, right? And that's, basically what this podcast is about. But making sure you're preparing for an ice storm Maybe you live in California or somewhere where you have wildfires all the time. So preparing for, wildfires, earthquakes, you name it, right? There's tons of things out there to prepare for. But it doesn't mean you have to go break the bank to go out there and buy, put yourself $100,000 in debt trying to get all the latest gadgets and gizmos you've seen on YouTube and all these other, prepper things, and to put in your home, and then you bought them for all the wrong reasons. Now, with that being said, if you're in an area like we are right here that's prone to ice storms, power outages in the spring and summer because of storms, having a backup generator, great investment, right? You're going to get your money out of it, but don't go off the deep end. Now, if you have a ton of money, disposable income, as I like to call it, sky's the limit. Go do what you want to do with your money. You can buy all the great things and whatnot. But just keep that in mind whenever you're trying to prepare your finances. One way I like to do it is every paycheck is get a few cans of this, a few bags of rice, as far as foodstuffs go, and put those away. Or maybe save up from a couple of checks to get a larger purchase item like a large, water filter for in the house, like a Berkey or something like that. Or even saving in another account after a little while to purchase that generator, because most generators, at least decent ones right off the bat, are at least $1,000. Most people don't have $1,000 of disposable income in this country today. They don't. One of the recent studies I saw said that most people couldn't put their hands on $500 cash right now if they tried. So part of that financial readiness is also having an emergency fund. Okay. Normally, everything I've ever read and everything I've seen in the videos I've looked at, some of the people I've even talked to at some of the banks or whatnot that I've done business with, they suggest that your emergency fund be, I want to say it's like 3 months of your bills, right? 3 months worth of your bills. That includes your mortgage, all your utilities, car notes, whatever bills you have every month, 3 months worth, tucked away somewhere. And that's, for most people, that's not doable because a bunch of people live paycheck to paycheck. So that financial readiness, maybe you cancel a subscription that you don't use or something, like that, and kind of move your money around so that you can be prepared whenever the time comes. All right, so one of the next things we're going to talk about are some weather-related current events that are going on. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about kind of what's going on in our area right now. We've had, I want to say it's been almost, with the exception, I think, like 2 days, the last month or so, almost every single day has been triple digits. It has just been relentless. And we had one day in there where we had some rain and it kind of dropped down. But other than that, it's been right back up there. I think we're supposed to get some relief next week. But with that being said, hot weather, right? Sitting up under this heat dome right now that we got going on, there are a lot of people, and I know especially in our area, they like to close down certain outside activities whenever we have a really bad heat. There's a wildlife refuge that happens to be close to us. It has a lot of really, really great hiking trails. And every summer, without fail, there's always, I'd say, probably about in between 5 to 15 rescues on the refuge, all right, on the wildlife refuge. And most of those are heat-related injuries. Somebody will go out there and they'll, let me find it here. They'll go out there for a 10-mile hike with this bottle of water I'm holding, right? A 10-mile hike with that bottle of water. It doesn't work. There might be somebody out there that can pull it off without having a heat stroke, but it just doesn't work. So with that being said, I think this year we've already had 3 fatalities, which is extremely high for us, that were out there on the wildlife refuge. Now, I'm not sure, because they haven't released all the details yet, I'm not sure what the heat or the terrain had to do with said fatalities out there, but they were found, 2 out of 3 of them were found in some really rugged areas of the wildlife refuge, places that you don't go unless you are prepared and you have somebody with you. And most people that hike or do anything outside anyway know that you never go anywhere alone. You don't. Especially in this particular area, being as rugged as it is, you can fall down in a little canyon or a little crevice or something like that, up under some boulders, fall off of something, break a leg, and you're done. Unless somebody's there to help get you out of there, they're probably not going to find you for a while. Even there's only a few main trails that go through some of the more rugged areas that are out there. I want to say there's a little over 29,000 acres and some change out there that the public can utilize or whatnot. And there's not a lot of trails, but there's some really good trails. But like I said, this year we're already up to 3 fatalities, and what they went ahead and did was on days that they're going to be, I haven't went out there and actually touch base with them or whatnot, but they do Facebook posts occasionally on their Facebook page to keep the public updated on what the criteria is. And I want to say it's like 3 days over 95 degrees or 3 days over 100 degrees in a row. They go ahead and issue a hiking ban out there. You can only hike from like sun up to 10 o'clock in the morning, then you have to be off the trails. They do this because people go out there and do dumb things, find themselves in a really bad situation, and the next thing you know, they had to call out search and rescue to go find these guys. And search and rescue, you got these guys out there and tons and tons of gear in the same heat that you're in, trying to find you, risking their lives to find you because you might not have been doing things in a intelligent manner when you went out there to start out with. So, and another one, as I'm reading right here, there was I believe it's Zion National Park. Most people in America have probably heard of Zion. It's a really, really well-known national park. It was also really well-known for flash floods. And when I say flash floods, I mean torrential flash floods. It's in the southwest part of the United States, a really arid part of the country. And it has a bunch of slot canyons. And basically what a slot canyon is, it's a really, really deep canyon, but it's very narrow. So what happens is they have a rainstorm somewhere around there, and all the water flows down into these slot canyons, and it moves very quickly. It also comes on very fast. You can be walking through one of these little slot canyons, and there might not be any water, and within 5 to 10 minutes, you might be in 10 foot of water moving 40 miles an hour. Most people who get caught in that have a really bad day. They have lots of people out there that, I say lots, quite a few every year that drown at places like Zion, Canyonlands, and a couple of others in that area that have slot canyons. Okay, flash floods are bad. They will even pick up and move your car, your truck, or whatever with a quickness. So water is the most powerful force on the planet as far as Mother Nature goes. Okay, nothing stronger than water. So they had this news story I'm reading right here was a hiker that was out there that got caught in a flash flood here recently, and basically had to spend a night out there on a high spot to keep from drowning. They were out there for quite a while, and they expended a bunch of resources trying to get this person out. They eventually did, which is good. But they had a few choice words for this individual whenever they found him, and that individual is probably going to get a really nice bill for their insurance, because it's going to take quite a bit to pay for some of those things. And just a side note on that, a bunch of people don't know that. Let's say you're out and about hiking. We'll use the Grand Canyon, for instance, because everybody knows what the Grand Canyon is. If you end up at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, doing a hike or whatnot, and something happens and you have to get rescued due to negligence, and sometimes even just because, maybe you had a heart attack or something, who knows. But if you have to get airlifted out of anything, your insurance might get charged for that. Now, depending on where you are in the country, getting a life flight can cost different amounts. I know in our local area, anytime they spin up a helicopter to come get you, it's normally, I want to say $10,000 to $15,000 an hour is what I was quoted when I talked to one of them about 6 months ago, just to operate the helicopter. Now, most times, depending on who it is and what's going on, sometimes you may not get that bill, but sometimes they can and do send that bill to your insurance. Same way with an ambulance ride. Ambulance rides are expensive too. Not that expensive, but they're expensive, especially if it's due to negligence, right? And then maybe your insurance won't pay it because you were being dumb when it happened. All that fine print when you signed your insurance policy, yeah, it's probably in there somewhere. So just keep that in mind when you're out and about, doing things in nature and whatnot, especially in the hot summer. And the same goes for the flip side of that, being when it's extremely cold or blizzard conditions or whatnot, maybe torrential rain. especially for this person I was reading about. They had torrential rain in that area, which is generally with your slot canyons and whatnot. Generally, the rain isn't even where you're at. It might be dry where you're at. The rain normally happens miles away, flows down through the canyon and catches you. This particular time, it was actually raining there too, so they knew it was coming. And a bunch of times, especially in Zion, I know they put out alerts. They close trails to preemptively do some of these things when they can catch it. That way, hikers aren't stranded out there and they don't have to go risk their lives to find them. So, with that being said, super hot around here, like really, really, really hot. Hopefully we're going to get some relief from it, but just keep that in mind if you're out and about. Make sure you're drinking plenty of fluids. Make sure you're wearing the right clothes. Sunscreen if you're, a pale ginger or something like that. Make sure you're protected. That way you don't burn to a crisp. Sunglasses, whatnot. Don't go out and do a whole bunch of super strenuous activity. All right, guys. So the next thing we're going to talk about is getting really, really good information on things. All right. Where do you go to get good information? Well, there's a ton of different places. And a bunch of times, unfortunately, a bunch of information you get is subjective when you're looking for objective things. And what I mean by that, just in case there's somebody out there who doesn't know what the difference between subjective and objective is facts. No matter who it happens to or, when it happens, a fact is a fact. Period. Everybody listening to this I guess maybe I really can't say that though. Everybody's going to be listening to this, I hope, right? So I guess that's a mixture, is on planet Earth. All right? Who knows where this stuff's beamed out to. But for real though, everybody here is listening from planet Earth, right? So with that being said, subjective is when you input your feelings into something, okay? And when it comes down to something that's life or death, i.e. some of the survivalist stuff we talk about all the time, hence the modern survivability thing, right? We like to have more objective things than subjective things. If I want something that's subjective, I'll tell you a joke, right? Well, haha, funny. That's cool, right? No. But, so with that being said, some of the places I go to get some of my information throughout the years, one place that I like to go is a website, not sponsored by them or anything like that, is called Survivalist Boards, okay? Now, you have to take everything with a grain of salt that you read on the internet, right? Not everything is true. Not everything is factual. A bunch of things are subjective and things like that, especially on a place that's a forum-based platform. But one thing that caught my eye when I was cruising, because I cruise through there sometimes to, see what some of the topics are. And I've learned a ton of things that are indeed objective facts, a step, how-to things, as far as survivalism goes, from websites like this. But this particular one was titled that you can't survive in a suburban environment, okay? A suburban environment. And if the original poster of this is actually out there listening, I agree with you. I've read your comments and I agree with you. So I'm going to read just a little snippet of this. I'm not going to say who it is, but I'm going to read a little snippet of this. And we're going to discuss this because it's a current event, obviously, because these things are, the more and more we expand our cities, think of your big places like your Dallas, Atlanta. The more these things expand out and become some suburban environments, the more these things are going to affect us. Okay, so with this particular one, this guy was saying it's not possible to survive in a house in a development. Okay, he said you can have all the equipment and food to live for years, but you can never survive your neighbors and gangs looking for food. Facts. Agreed. And on that note, I'll say you can go out and we'll say you can go to Atlas Survival Shelters, right? Big company. Wish I could afford one. But with that being said, you can go out there and build a, $20 million shelter up under your house. You can have 200 acres of land. You can have the biggest walls around it or whatever. All right, all the fortifications, defenses, 100 years of food, everything you could possibly think of. Satellite phones, solar panels, wind, whatever. But if you're hiding out there, especially in a bunker, the easiest way to get somebody out of a bunker, you got to find the air vent. Every single one of them has an air vent, period. all the way from some, a storm cellar in your backyard, all the way up to something like NORAD. NORAD has air vents, believe it or not. They do have capability to not use them for a while, but at the end of the day, they still need supplies. They're limited by the supplies down there. Now, with everybody else in the world that's not NORAD, all right, if you don't know what NORAD is, Google it. If you've never heard of it before, it'll blow your mind when you do it, and you maybe watch a YouTube documentary on it. It's really, really cool. But with that being said, like your backyard shelters and stuff like that, all of them have an air vent. You can stay down there for quite a long time, but if I can find the air vent, I can get you out of the bunker. It's really simple, and I can do it for about 39 cents. It doesn't cost a whole lot. So keep that in mind whenever you're building some of these things. If you do live in an environment like that, make sure it's camouflaged so nobody can find it. Because when they find it in a situation that's really, really bad, apocalypse situation, SHTF situation, or something like that, they're going to get you out of there. And obviously, it's not going to be pleasant when they do. So with that being said, some of the other things this guy is talking about is, the neighbors and the gangs and stuff looking for food. Most people don't realize that your average grocery store or your average big box store, something like a Walmart or a insert whatever grocery store you have there, because most of those are regional and local. So just your grocery stores, right? They don't have stock rooms like they did 30, 40 years ago. They don't. Used to, they keep enough stock for about a week. They get a truck about once a week, once every 2 weeks or something like that, and they were good to go. Yes, the population's exploded since then. We've added a whole bunch of people. However, companies are in the business to make money, period. The biggest profit they can turn is what they're in it for, right? With that being said, most of your big businesses and things like that don't really have a quote-unquote stock room anymore. They got enough for about 48 to 72 hours of back stock for their shelves. They're getting trucks like your average Walmart supercenter. They get trucks every day, right, for different things. But in an event where the trucks stop moving, the boats stop going or whatnot, and that's shut off, we'll use everybody's favorite. We'll say an EMP, right? Everybody loves that one. It's a possibility. And like I said in the last one, nothing's impossible. So we'll say EMP knocks out all the electricity, all the vehicles, like everybody likes to fantasize about in a bunch of these apocalyptic movies. Either way, the trucks stop coming to Walmart. Well, if people were to continue to go to Walmart normally, they'd only last 48 to 72 hours. But in a situation like that, everybody's already panic buying anyway. So that store's going to get cleaned out in about 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on the location. Some places in America, it might get cleaned out a lot quicker than that, and they'll take everything, including the shelves, the windows, and doors, and everything else. I mean, it depends on where you live and, who lives there and what their mentality is. And in a situation like that where nobody, for the most part of the United States, doesn't have power, and it's probably not going to come back on, but there again, most people don't know that. They just think it's electricity. As long as I can hit the switch over there on the wall, it's going to come back on eventually, right? No, maybe not. But they don't have a lot of stock. So everybody's going to be hungry really quick. Just think about that. There's only a couple things you absolutely need to survive. You need food, you need water, right? You need shelter. Those are your three big ones, right? Water, you can go without water for 3 to 5 days, depending on the environment and how you exert your effort or whatnot. Food, you can go up to about 3 weeks or so. There again, depending on your environment and how you exert yourself, and also what kind of physical conditioning you are in. A shelter, you might only be able to go 3 minutes or 3 hours without shelter if you're in a blizzard or the blazing sun. I mean, it just depends, right? But that food, people do a lot of crazy stuff over food. And you don't really have to look at the United States as an example for that. Look back at some of the things that have happened in other countries like famines or whatnot. There was famines in Africa, Asia, things. One particular one was going on when, remember the movie Black Hawk Down, right? Back in Somalia in the 90s. They were going through a famine and tons of people died because they didn't have food, right? People will kill you and your family over a bag of rice if it comes to that. I'm not saying there's going to be tons and tons of roving gangs out there going around. I mean, there might be, depending on where you live. Nobody can say for sure because we've never really seen it to that extent before. Now, as far as like the riots and stuff like that, and peaceful protest that everybody likes to talk about. We did get a taste of that during COVID, in some places, and during the BLM fiasco that was going on. There was all over the country, things happening. We have seen some things happen in other countries, like in Paris. I believe it was last year and the year before. And actually, I think a little bit of it's still going on too, with some of the farmers having issues with their government over there over some, there again, taxes or whatnot. And they were going ham on the government over there. And most of it was farmers doing that. And I believe there was an issue in Canada. I'm pretty sure it was Canada. That was last year over some truckers that were going through some sort of similar thing. And those are some people you don't want to piss off. You don't want to piss off the farmer that grows your food. Newsflash, it doesn't just come from Walmart. It actually comes from somewhere. And you don't want to piss off the truckers that get your food to your Walmart to get to your house. If they stop moving, you stop eating. You stop eating, well, you know what happens. It's not rocket science. So with that being said, this guy was talking about being in a suburban environment, not being able to survive in a bad SHTF situation or, something similar. I agree with you, 100%. Excuse me. But there are some other people, cruise through the comments here. And there's some other people on here. Everybody's got their own opinion. You're entitled to it. Now, granted, most of the ones on this forum are more slanted towards the survivalist aspect, so it's good. Most of them are going to be in agreement with most of the things that's going on here. But you got to make sure that as far as the suburban environment goes, you got to make sure you have that backup plan to get out. Now, one of the podcasts earlier, we talked about like your vehicle kit, your bug out bag, having a bug out location if possible, if you don't already live in it. Some people have already got out of the cities and moved out to the country somewhere, and that's going to be where their bug out location. I guess you could say there's where they're going to make their final stand should it come to something like that, but hopefully it doesn't. But being in a suburban environment is bad. For one, you don't have a lot of resources. Everybody lives on a little small piece of property. You're on city water, local electricity, local power grid. Most suburban environments don't allow you to go off grid and still be in a suburban environment. I will say, however, in our area, I am seeing more and more solar panels popping up on people's houses. Now, whether that's a supplement to their grid power, or if they're using it as just their electricity and, still in city water and sewer and things like that. I don't know because I haven't personally talked to any of them. But in our area, you're starting to see it in a bunch of the suburban areas. People are putting a lot of solar panels up, which is good. They actually work. So hanging out in a suburban area when something like this happens is you're going to get got. I mean, there's no other way around it. Last year, when I was still living in a suburban environment, I think it was last year. Yeah, last year we had a power outage that lasted, I want to say, just over 24 hours. It's like 26, 27 hours or something like that due to a large storm that came through, tore up a whole bunch of stuff, and then one of the substations in our area caught fire. Like there's a building in the middle of it. It has a bunch of control panels or whatnot, and I'm not sure exactly what all of them do, but they do control electricity. And there was a fire in there, and it was out of commission for a little over a day. And that's the darkest I've ever seen a city. It was pretty spooky there for a little bit because there's absolutely no lights on anywhere. And thankfully, I was fortunate enough to have a friend that had a generator. He loaned me to keep the freezer going and a couple of fans. I didn't particularly, I didn't have a generator at that time. I'm still working on that part now, but I have some other ways to mitigate some of those factors should I lose electricity. But losing electricity in a place like that, things are going to go south pretty quick if it's longer than about a day and a half. Look at some of the areas that we've had natural disasters at here in America. Katrina. Now, Katrina, obviously, large hurricane. It was more than just losing electricity. It was a whole snowball effect of flooding, a hurricane on top of it with hurricane force winds, flooding, no electricity, which was due to some of that flooding, levees breaking, people, routed out of their houses, having to be rescued off the roof by helicopters and boats and whatnot. I mean, there's lots of different things. Some of the wildfires out in California, just devastating things. So these suburban areas, once part of your infrastructure goes down, I mean, it can get bad really, really quick. So with that being said, I mean, I 100% agree with this guy. Trying to survive in a suburban environment after SHTF, it's going to be hard. All right, not saying it can't be done, but it's highly unlikely that it's going to last for you. Okay, and I know not everybody can get out. I know not everybody has the funds or the resources to just up and bug out when something bad happens. And I understand that, but if by all means you can, make sure you have a plan in place just in case you can. All right, and a couple of the other comments that I was reading on this were coming from people like this. I don't know where the original poster was from, but this other guy was chiming in because he lives in New York City. You can't get more urban. I know we were talking about suburban, but as far as urban goes, it still goes along the same thing, but just like tenfold, right? I've never been personally to New York, right? I know all about it, but I haven't been there. But I've been to big, large cities, and they're pretty much all the same when it comes to that stuff. All the infrastructure, I should say, is like centrally controlled or whatnot. So you lose power, and you live, I don't know, 30 floors up in a high rise. Man, it's a long walk down the fire escape. And you're just stacked on top of people. If you can get out, just go ahead and try to now. If not, at least try to have a plan to make your your stay as minimal as possible. Noise and light discipline and things like that. Don't be out on the balcony or anything trying to grill a steak and day 3 of a power outage when nobody really has food, because everybody's going to want to know where the steak's at. Don't be the only one that has, like, if you happen to have a generator and you live in a suburban environment, don't be the only one with lights on in the middle of the night when nobody else has them on. Noise and light discipline, little small things, and we've talked about those before. Okay, one of the last things that I'm going to talk about as far as current events, and it's been popping up all over the place, not just here, but actually in other countries too, but more so prevalent for us, just because in other countries they don't have the same constitution we do, or even a constitution at all in some places. But we have a lot more leeway to try to do the right thing in our country, or so we think. And that is a growing number of parents in the United States are alleging that their school books that their children are getting have obscene and really bad material in it that the children shouldn't be seeing at young ages. Okay, and I know that's going to dive into politics a little bit. I'm not really going there, but I will say that whenever we're raising our children, okay, you want to try to raise your children with the best morals and values, and just overall be a good person, right? And part of that is, and it doesn't have to dive down a religious context. I mean, and if it does for you, that's fine. Excuse me. Everybody's entitled to that. Me personally, I believe, but that's neither here nor there. Morals and values are super important in raising your child, and that's going to follow them the rest of their life, and that's going to mold them into who they are, and that goes with anybody, right? But especially your children, okay? And children should not, okay, and this is one of those subjective things, and if you disagree with it, you're probably on the wrong podcast, okay? You're probably in the wrong neck of the woods, because most normal people, and I say normal people that have a little bit of common sense and have morals and values, would agree with these parents, this article I'm reading right here, and me personally, that these books have no place in elementary schools, grammar schools, and even up to pretty much, I'd say, almost halfway through their high school years. I mean, the kind of books that we're talking about should be reserved for, maybe a senior in high school. I really don't personally think so, but I mean, that might be the leeway that, or the how should I put it, the happy medium, if you want to call it that, with some of this filth that they're putting in schools, but more for college people, more for college students, I should say, somebody that's an adult. You don't want your children looking at this filth, period. Now, a bunch of school districts in a bunch of places across America, and now that I'm reading in some other countries also, because they think it's the woke thing to do, and if you don't like that term, that's fine. Like I said, you're probably, if me saying woke offends you, then, I can't please everybody. A bunch of this stuff is my own personal opinion. But if you're one of those people, then this offends you, then, maybe you're not in the right place. More power to you to find something that you do like. But I will say this filth doesn't belong in children's hands where they can read it or see it. There's laws against it. Anywhere else other than school, people would be put in jail for some of this stuff. And there's parents that have been put in jail all across America for going to like a PTA meeting, PTO meeting, whatever it is, and confronting the school board over the things that are in the school library that have, graphic representations of things that adults do, put in books for, like second, third, fourth graders on up. They shouldn't have that. So make sure you get involved. And that kind of goes back to that first topic I talked about, local government. Part of your local government is also your PTA, it's your local school. Make sure you're involved. I mean, there's been a bunch of pushback from certain school districts, all across America. Also, on the flip side of that, they're saying, we're not going to put that in our school. We're not going to do it. It has no place there. For one, it has no real purpose. I mean, even if it wasn't taboo for anybody, or just a wrong thing morally to do, there's no educational purpose behind it. Period. Right? It shouldn't even be there. So just keep that in mind whenever you're, talking to your kids when they come home from school, or, checking out your, school library, especially if you have younger kids or whatnot, and see what kind of books they have. Some places you can actually check out some of the things on the internet through their websites and see what kind of things they have in their schools. And that kind of varies depending on where you're at. But the key point there is to be a part of your kids' education. All right, it's becoming really difficult in some places for that to be a thing without you getting in trouble. All right, because you push back against the school board, maybe they happen to be a little bit woke, and the next thing you know, you end up in jail for doing nothing at all other than trying to take care of your child and exercising your First Amendment right. So do a little research, figure out what's going on, talk to your kids, and just make sure you're doing the best thing for them, raising them with good morals and values and just how to be a good person. The more good people we have in the world, the better off we'll be. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Real Talk. We talked on some current events and how they relate to survivability or whatnot. Be sure to go over and check us out at Modern Survivability 3 on Instagram, Modern Survivability on Facebook. This is also going to be on Spotify, as the audio is going to be on Spotify. It may be video on there too as a video podcast, but it's definitely going to be put on YouTube whenever it comes out. So check us out at YouTube at Modern Survivability. And make sure you like and comment, subscribe if you want to on YouTube. Check us out. So with that being said, just remember that speed is fast, but accuracy is far.